Welcome to the night. Not the night as something to get through. The night as something to receive. A gift with dark wrapping and quiet inside. The kind of gift that can only be opened when the day has finally stopped asking things of you and the hands are empty enough to receive what is being offered. You are here now, and the hands are empty enough. Across this series, we are going to spend 5 nights together in the quieter corners of Scripture. Not the dramatic moments necessarily, not the fire from heaven or the parting of the sea or the thunder on the mountain. Those stories matter, and they are beautiful. But tonight we are going somewhere softer. We are going to the moments that happen in the in-between. The night a boy heard his name in the dark and did not know who was calling. The afternoon a woman sat at the feet of Jesus while her sister worried in the kitchen. The moment in a crowd when one person reached out and touched the hem of a garment and everything changed. These are the quiet stories, the ones that did not make the front page of the ancient world but have been carrying people through dark nights for thousands of years. The ones that feel small until you get close enough to see what is inside them, and what is inside them is enormous. Tonight we begin with 3 of them. We will move slowly, there is no hurry. The stories have been waiting patiently for thousands of years and they will wait for us to arrive at our own pace. So settle in, let the breath slow, let the day begin its long release. The stories are ready, and so is the one who is in all of them. We begin in the night. Because that is where the first story happens, in the dark, in the quiet. In the hours when most of the world is asleep and the usual noise has gone and something else becomes possible in the silence. The book of 1 Samuel chapter 3. The boy Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was, and the lamp of God had not yet gone out. That detail matters. The lamp had not yet gone out. In the temple, the lamp was kept burning through the night. Its light was never supposed to be completely extinguished, and the writer notes it here. In the darkest hours of the night, the lamp was still burning. It is always still burning. That is one of the things this story wants you to know before it says anything else. Samuel was young, a boy given to the temple by his mother Hannah, the same Hannah we talked about in another night, the one who prayed with such intensity in the temple that Eli the priest thought she was drunk. She had asked God for a son, and she had promised that if he gave her one, she would give him back, and she kept her promise. So Samuel grew up in the temple, under the care of Eli, learning the rhythms of the sacred place, the offerings and the prayers and the keeping of the lamp. And on this particular night, he was lying down, and the Lord called, Samuel, just his name, quiet in the dark, the way a voice sounds when it is close, when it is not projecting across a distance but speaking directly to the one it is calling, Samuel. And he got up and ran to Eli. Here I am. You called me. That is what Samuel said. Here I am. You called me. There is something beautiful about those words. The immediate response, the willingness to get up in the dark and go toward the voice. He did not know yet who was calling. He thought it was Eli. But he got up anyway. He went toward the sound. He presented himself. Here I am, you called me. And Eli said, I did not call, go back and lie down. So Samuel went back and lay down. And the Lord called again, Samuel. And again Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am, you called me. And Eli said again, I did not call, my son. Go back and lie down. The scripture adds something here that is important. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. He did not yet know the Lord. He lived in the temple. He tended the lamp. He served under the priest. But the personal knowledge of God, the direct encounter with the voice, that had not happened yet. It was about to. Because there is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God, between living in the sacred space and having the sacred speak to you directly. And God was about to close that distance for Samuel in the most personal way possible, by calling his name in the dark, by waiting for him to be still enough and quiet enough and present enough to hear, by coming to him in the night when the lamp was still burning and the world was asleep, and there was nothing between the voice and the boy but silence. The Lord called a 3rd time, Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli again. Here I am, you called me. And this time Eli understood. Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. There is tenderness in this moment. Eli was old, his own sons had been faithless, his own legacy was complicated. But in this moment he did what a good teacher does. He recognized something happening in his student that was larger than anything he himself could produce, and he got out of the way of it. He said to Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.' Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." That is the posture. That is the whole of it in 5 words. Not "Speak, Lord, and I will evaluate what you say." Not "Speak, Lord, if what you say aligns with what I was hoping for." Not "Speak, Lord, and I will respond when I have had time to think it over." Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. The posture of availability, of openness, of the ears already turned toward the voice before the voice has finished forming the words. So Samuel went and lay down in his place, and the Lord came and stood there, and called as at the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord spoke. Whatever God said that night to a boy in the dark in a temple where the lamp had not gone out, whatever the words were, they began because a child had the courage to stop running back to Eli and instead to lie still and say, "Speak, I am listening." That is the beginning of every encounter with God that has ever changed a life. Just that. Speak, I am listening. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Let that be your prayer for tonight. Not the elaborate prayer, not the one with all the right words in the right order. Just that. Speak, I am listening. Because what Samuel discovered in that dark temple is still true tonight. God speaks in the quiet, in the night, in the hours when the noise of the day has finally stopped competing with the voice that was always there underneath it. He has been speaking all along, in the moments between the doing, in the spaces between the words, in the darkness that feels empty but is actually full of his presence, full of his attention, full of the voice that knows your name the way it knew Samuel's. Not a general broadcast, your name, the specific one. Spoken with the particular knowledge of the one who made you and has been watching you and has things to say to you that are only for you. He is speaking tonight, in the quiet of this room, in the slowing of the breath, in the weight of a body that is finally still enough to receive what the rushing hours could not. You do not have to go and find him. You do not have to run to Eli 3 times before you understand who is calling. You already know, and he has already been calling. Lie down, be still, and say the thing Samuel finally said. Speak, for your servant is listening. And then listen, not for a dramatic voice, not for words that require decoding, for the quiet that is not empty, for the presence that is not absence, for the peace that comes when the soul stops talking long enough to hear what has been waiting to be heard. He is speaking, and you are listening, and that is everything. Now we move from the temple in the night to a house in a village, from the quiet dark to a busy afternoon, from a boy learning to listen to 2 sisters with very different ideas about what mattered most. Luke chapter 10, the home of Mary and Martha. Jesus and his disciples were on their way, and he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Martha opened her home. That is the first thing we learn about her. She was the one who opened the door, who made space, who said, "Yes, come in, there is room here." That is not nothing. That is an act of welcome that required something of her, the decision to receive. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. 2 sisters, same house, same guest, completely different responses to his presence. Mary sat at his feet, listening. There is a posture in this image that is worth staying with. Sitting at someone's feet in the ancient world was the posture of a student, of a learner, of someone who had decided that what the teacher had to say was more important than anything else they could be doing with their time. Mary had decided. She was not passive. She was making a choice, a deliberate, active, costly choice, to be still, to be present, to receive, to let the words land without immediately moving to the next thing. She sat, and she listened, and outside the room where the sitting and the listening were happening, something else was unfolding. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Distracted. That is the word the scripture uses. Not busy, not helpful. Distracted. Pulled away from the center. Scattered across the many things. Unable to be fully present to the one thing that was happening right in front of her because the 10 other things were making so much noise. We know this feeling. All of us know this feeling. The inability to be in the room we are actually in because the other rooms keep calling. The inability to be present to the moment we are in because the next moment is already demanding attention. Martha was there, but she was not there. She was in the kitchen and at the table and counting the dishes and wondering about the bread and calculating how much time was left before the meal needed to be ready. And Jesus was in the next room. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me, don't you care?" That is the question underneath the question, the one that surfaces when the doing has gone on too long and the resentment has built up and the weariness has made the words more honest than they might otherwise be. Don't you care that I am carrying this alone? Don't you care that I am trying so hard and no one seems to notice? Don't you care that I am in the kitchen while she gets to just sit? It is a very human question, asked from a very human place. And Jesus does not rebuke it. He receives it. He sees the exhaustion in it. And he answers with something that is not a correction so much as an invitation. "Martha, Martha." He says her name twice. The way you say a name when you want someone to really hear you. When you need the person to stop for a moment and come back to where you are and receive what you are about to say. Martha, Martha. You are worried and upset about many things. He names it. He does not pretend the worry is not real or the upset is not real. He sees it. He names it. You are worried. You are upset about many things, many things. That is the condition, the scattered attention, the weight distributed across too many concerns at once. The inability to be fully present to any one thing because the many things are competing for the same finite supply of attention and energy and care. But few things are needed, or indeed only one. Only one thing is needed. Not the elaborate meal, not the perfect hospitality, not the performance of welcome that takes all day and leaves the host too exhausted to receive the guest. One thing, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. What is better, not what is easier, not what is more comfortable or more convenient. What is better, the sitting, the listening, the choosing to be present, the presence rather than absent from it in the service of things that feel urgent but are not what is most needed. What is better, tonight, whatever the many things are that have been pulling at you all day, whatever the preparations and the worries and the upsets and the tasks that did not get finished and the ones that got finished but cost more than they should have, you are being invited to choose what is better. To come out of the kitchen, to sit down, to be present to the presence, to listen. There is no rebuke in Jesus' words to Martha. Read them again. Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. He is not scolding her, he is grieving with her. He is looking at someone he loves who is carrying too much and saying, "You do not have to carry all of this. There is something better available, right here, in this room, in this moment. Come and receive it." And the beautiful thing about this story is what it does not tell us. It does not tell us that Martha stayed in the kitchen. It does not tell us that she argued, or that she dismissed what he said, or that the meal remained unfinished and everyone went hungry. It just ends with the invitation open, with the door between the kitchen and the room where Jesus was still ajar, with the words still hanging in the air, "What is better?" And it will not be taken away. We do not know if Martha sat down, but the invitation was given, and invitations from Jesus do not expire. That invitation is still open tonight. For the Martha in you, for the part that has been in the kitchen all day, that has been managing and preparing and carrying the weight of the many things. Come out of the kitchen, sit down. The guest is still here, still present, still offering what Mary chose. The sitting, the listening, the receiving of the one thing that is better than all the preparation in the world, and it will not be taken away from you either, if you choose it tonight. And now we come to a crowd. A large one. The kind that pressed in from every side. The kind where the noise was constant and the movement was constant and the air itself felt thick with the press of people and the heat of too many bodies in too small a space. Jesus was in the middle of it, moving through it, on his way somewhere, to the home of a synagogue leader named Jairus, whose daughter was dying. He was already on his way to an emergency, already being pulled through the crowd, already surrounded by need and urgency and the weight of what was waiting for him at the other end of the journey. And in the crowd, a woman. She had been ill for 12 years. 12 years, the length of a childhood, the whole of a generation. 12 years of trying every doctor and spending every resource and finding no relief. 12 years of a condition that made her ceremonially unclean under the law, which meant 12 years of isolation, of being outside, of not being able to be touched or to touch without consequence. 12 years of that. And she had heard about Jesus. Something about what she heard made her push into the crowd, against the protocol, against the law that said she should not be there, against the practical reality that this was a large crowd and she was weak and finding one person in it was nearly impossible. She pushed in anyway, because she had decided something. She had decided that if she could just touch the edge of his cloak, she would be healed. Not his hand, not his face. The edge of his cloak, the very outermost boundary of his presence. She reached for that. She came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Just that, one touch, from behind, without announcing herself, without making a request, without asking permission or presenting her case or explaining the 12 years. Just a hand, reaching, in faith, for the edge of the garment. And immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. Immediately, the word that appears so often in the Gospels when Jesus heals, not gradually, not partially, not after a period of waiting to see if it would take. Immediately, 12 years, and then immediately. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" The disciples looked at him with the mild incredulity of people who have been navigating a large crowd. "You see the people crowding against you," they said, "and yet you can ask who touched me? Everyone is touching you. The crowd is pressing in from every side. The question of who touched you is unanswerable." But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. He kept looking, because he knew the difference between the incidental contact of the crowd and the intentional reach of faith, between the people who bumped against him because the crowd left no space and the one person who had pushed through everything to reach for the very edge of what he carried. He knew the difference. And he was looking for her. The woman knew what had happened to her. She came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear told him the whole truth, all of it. The 12 years, the doctors, the money, the isolation, the decision to push through the crowd, the reaching, the touching, the feeling in her body of something changing that had not changed in 12 years. She told him everything, trembling, afraid of what he would say, afraid perhaps that the healing would be taken back, that the touch had been wrong, that the reaching without asking had been presumptuous. She told him everything, and he said to her, "Daughter," that word, daughter, in all the interactions Jesus had with people in the Gospels. This is one of only a handful of times he uses that word, daughter, not woman, not you there, daughter, the most intimate relational word available, the word that closes the distance entirely. That says you are not a stranger to me, you are not a case I am managing, you are not a problem I am solving, you are mine, and I see you, and I have always seen you. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Go in peace, not go carefully, not go and see if it lasts, not go and come back in a week so we can confirm the results. Go in peace, it is done. The 12 years are over, the suffering is finished, the isolation has ended, you are free. And she was, because she reached. Through the crowd and the protocol and the fear and the 12 years of everything that said this was too much to hope for, she reached anyway, and he was already turning toward her before she could say a word. There is something in this story that I want to sit with for a moment. She touched the edge of his cloak, not the center, the edge, the outermost part, the place that seemed least likely to carry the power, the place that required the least from him and cost her the most to reach. And it was enough. You do not need to reach the center tonight. You do not need to have the perfect prayer or the most articulate faith or the strongest trust or the most complete surrender. You do not need to have everything figured out before you reach. The edge is enough. Whatever the smallest available faith is in you right now, the thinnest thread of reaching, the most tentative touch, the barely there trust that is more instinct than conviction, the reaching that happens in the dark when you are not even sure what you are reaching toward, that is enough, because he is already turning, already looking through the crowd to find the one who reached. Already saying daughter before the explanation has been given, already knowing the 12 years without being told, already prepared to say go in peace before the trembling has stopped. He is already turning. Whatever the 12 years of your life have been, whatever the condition that has been with you so long it has started to feel permanent, Whatever the isolation that has kept you on the outside of things that other people seem to be inside of without effort. Reach, even from behind, even without announcing yourself, even for just the edge of the cloak. He will feel it. He always feels it. And he is already turning. Reach tonight. Just reach. 3 stories for this first part of the night. A boy in a dark temple who learned to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." 2 sisters and a guest and an invitation to come out of the kitchen and choose what is better. A woman in a crowd who pushed through everything to touch the edge of a cloak and heard herself called daughter. They are different stories, different people, different centuries of the story of God and his people, but they are held together by a single thread. He comes to the ones who make themselves available. Samuel lying still in the dark and saying, "Speak." Mary sitting at his feet and choosing to receive rather than perform. The woman pushing through the crowd to reach for the edge of the garment. All 3 of them made a move toward him. All 3 of them chose presence over productivity. All 3 of them did the thing that felt too small or too uncertain or too audacious, and found that he was already there when they arrived. He is already there, in the dark temple, in the house with the busy sister, in the pressing crowd. Already there, already calling, already looking around to find the one who reached. And he is already here tonight. In this room, in this dark, in the slowing of the breath and the heaviness of the body that is finally letting the day go. He was here before you lay down. He will be here when the morning comes. And he is here now in all the hours between, waiting to be found, or more accurately, waiting for you to notice that he has already found you. Let the 3 images settle now. The lamp in the temple that had not yet gone out, even in the darkest part of the night. Still burning. That is tonight. The lamp has not gone out. The darkness of the room is not the darkness of absence. It is the darkness of a presence that does not need light to be real. He is here in the dark the same as he is in the light. The lamp of his presence has not gone out, and it never goes out. The room where Mary sat, quiet, attentive, present to the one thing that was better than all the many things. The posture of the learner, the posture of the receiver. That is what is available to you right now. The one thing. Not the many things the day scattered your attention across. The one thing that does not get taken away from the one who chooses it. His presence, his voice, the sitting and the listening and the receiving. You can choose it right now, in the dark, in the bed, in the quiet of a night that is asking nothing of you except that you be present to what is here. Choose what is better. And the edge of the cloak. The smallest possible reach of faith. The reaching that does not require everything to be figured out first. The touching from behind in the crowd that says, "I believe enough to reach even if I cannot explain why." That is all that is required tonight. The smallest available faith. The thinnest thread of trust, the most tentative reaching toward the one who is already turning toward you. That is enough. It has always been enough. Let us pray. Father, we are grateful tonight for the quiet stories, for the lamp that did not go out and the boy who finally lay still enough to hear his name, for the invitation to come out of the kitchen and sit down and choose what is better. Do everything to reach the edge of the cloak and was called daughter. These stories have been carrying people through dark nights for thousands of years, and they are still carrying, still doing their quiet work, still telling us something about who you are in the moments that do not make the front page. In the ordinary and the intimate and the almost too small to notice, you are there. You have always been there. In the dark temple with the lamp still burning. In the house where the busy sister was exhausted. In the crowd where one person was reaching from behind with the last of what she had. You were in all of those places, fully present, fully attending, speaking the name, grieving with the one who was scattered across too many things. Feeling the touch that no one else in the crowd felt because no one else was reaching like that. You were there, and you are here, in this room, in this night, in the slow breath and the heavy body and the mind that is finally quieting after the long, loud day. You are here, the lamp has not gone out, the invitation to sit down is still open, and you are already turning toward every reaching hand in this room tonight. Thank you for being the kind of God who shows up in the quiet places, who calls names in the dark, who says daughter to the trembling ones, who invites the exhausted out of the kitchen and into the room where the one thing is happening. Thank you for tonight. Watch over the ones who are in their dark temple tonight. The ones who have been in the sacred place for a long time but have not yet had the personal encounter. Who know about you but do not yet know you. Who have been tending the lamp without hearing the voice. Who are lying in the dark tonight with a longing they cannot fully name. Call their name, tonight, in the quiet, in the way that only you can call it. Let them hear what Samuel finally heard. Not Eli, not the noise of the day, your voice, specific and close and entirely for them. And when they say, "Here I am," speak to them. Watch over the ones who are in the kitchen, who have been so busy with the preparations of life that they have forgotten there is a room where something better is happening. Who are exhausted from the doing and the carrying and the managing and have not sat down in so long they have forgotten what it feels like. Bring them out of the kitchen tonight, not by removing the responsibilities but by reminding them what is more important. Let the one thing be louder than the many things for just this night. Let them choose what is better. Let them sit down. Watch over the ones who have been in the crowd with a 12-year condition, who have been isolated by something for so long that the isolation has started to feel like identity, who are still carrying the thing that was supposed to have been resolved long ago, who are reaching tonight from behind, quietly, without announcing themselves. Feel the reaching, turn toward them, call them daughter, call them son, say the word that closes every distance and ends every isolation and says, "You are not a stranger here, you are mine, you know every one of them." And you are already turning. The night is full. Not full of noise, full of the quiet things that matter more than the noise, full of the presence that has been here since before you lay down and will be here long after the morning comes, full of the lamp that has not gone out, the constant light of his presence in the dark, not flickering, not in danger of being extinguished, steady, faithful, burning, full of the invitation, "Come out of the kitchen, sit down, choose what is better, it is still open. It will be open tomorrow and the day after and every day that follows. But it is especially open right now, in the quiet, when the many things have finally stopped competing, full of the awareness of the one who turns toward the reaching, who feels the touch that no one else felt, who looks through the crowd to find the one person who pushed through everything to reach for the edge of the possible. He is turning toward you right now. However you arrived at tonight, however much or how little faith you brought with you, however thin the reaching feels, however uncertain the trust, he is turning. And the word he is saying to you is the same word he said to her, "Daughter, son, beloved, your faith has brought you here." And here is where the healing begins. Go in peace. Rest now. Let the 3 stories do their quiet work in you while the sleeping happens. Let the lamp stay burning. Let the sitting and the listening continue even below the level of conscious thought. Let the hand stay open, reaching. Even in sleep, he is here, and he is turning, and you are safe. We are back in the quiet. Part 1 took us to a dark temple and a busy house and a crowded road, to a boy learning to listen, and a sister being invited out of the kitchen, and a woman reaching through everything for the edge of a cloak. And the thread running through all 3 of those stories was the same. He shows up in the quiet places, in the in-between, in the moments that do not announce themselves as sacred until you are already inside them. Tonight we go deeper into that, into the stories of people who were faithful in the hidden places, who served and loved and waited and trusted in the seasons when no one was watching and nothing was dramatic, and the faithfulness itself was the whole of what they had to offer. Ruth gleaning in a field that was not her own, in a country that was not her home, choosing loyalty when every practical reason said to choose otherwise. A widow in Zarephath sharing her last handful of flour with a stranger in a drought, giving what she could not afford to give and finding that the giving did not empty the jar. Anna in the temple, 84 years of praying, decade after decade in the same sacred place, waiting for something she had been promised and could not yet see, faithful in the waiting the way very few people are faithful in anything. These are the hidden ones, the ones whose names you might not have remembered before tonight, the ones who did not part any seas or bring any fire down from heaven. They just kept showing up, day after day, in the ordinary, in the unremarkable, in the faithful small, and it was enough. It was more than enough. It was exactly what God was looking for. The book of Ruth begins with loss. A woman named Naomi, her husband dead, her 2 sons dead, in a foreign country with 2 daughters-in-law and no way forward that she could see. She decided to return to her homeland of Bethlehem, and she told her daughters-in-law to go back to their own families, to their own people, to find new husbands among their own kind, to start again. One of them kissed her goodbye and left. But Ruth clung to her. That word, clung. It is the same word used in Genesis when a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife. It is the word for the kind of holding on that is not casual, not polite, not convenient. The holding on that has made a decision and is not reversing it. Ruth clung to Naomi, and Naomi said to her, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." And Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you, for where you go I will go, and where you lodge I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." These words have been read at weddings for centuries, which is beautiful. But they were not spoken at a wedding, they were spoken at a funeral, at the end of everything, in the wreckage of a life that had lost what it was built around. And they were spoken to a mother-in-law, not a husband, not a lover. A grieving older woman with nothing left to offer except her company on the road back to a place Ruth had never been. That is the faithfulness, not the romantic kind, the unglamorous kind, the kind that shows up when showing up costs everything and offers nothing obvious in return. So they went, both of them, until they came to Bethlehem. And when they arrived, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" And Naomi said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty." Empty, that is the word she uses for herself. She went away full and came back empty. The husband gone, the sons gone, the years gone, the plans gone, empty, and standing beside her, Ruth, who had given up everything to be there, who was herself a kind of fullness that Naomi could not yet see because the grief was too fresh and the loss too large. But God could see it. The book of Ruth is one of the few books in the Bible named after a woman, and it is one of the few books that gives us an extended portrait of faithfulness in the ordinary, not in the dramatic, in the daily, in the going to the field and gleaning and coming home and doing it again the next day and the next. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, in whose sight I shall find favor. Let me go to the field, not let me wait for something better to come along, not let me hold out for a situation that is more dignified or more certain. Let me go to the field. Let me do the humble thing, the practical thing, the thing that is available even if it is not impressive. Let me go." Gleaning was the provision God had built into the law for the poor and the foreign. When a field was harvested, the workers were not to go back and pick up what they had missed. They were to leave it, for the widow, for the orphan, for the stranger in the land. The edges of the field were left unharvested for the same reason. The leftovers were someone else's portion. It was dignified provision. But it was still provision by leftovers, still the picking up of what others had left behind, still the bending down in the heat of the day after the main harvest was done. Ruth did this every day, without complaint, without resentment, without waiting for something better. She happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. She happened. The scripture says she happened, as if it were a coincidence, as if the particular corner of the field she chose that morning was random, as if the specific plot of land where she bent down to gather the leftover grain was an accident of geography. But nothing in this story is an accident. The happenings of God are not the same as the happenings of chance. They look the same from the outside. The small, unremarkable decision, the turning left instead of right, the choosing of this field over that one, the arriving at this particular moment in this particular place. From the outside it looks like coincidence. From where God stands it looks like faithfulness meeting faithfulness. Ruth's faithfulness to Naomi meeting Boaz's faithfulness to his workers. and both of them meeting the faithfulness of a God who was working in the background of a story that looked from the inside like nothing but grief and leftovers. She happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. She happened. And everything changed. Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and said to his workers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." That exchange matters. It tells us something about the field before Ruth arrived in it. It was already a place where the name of God was spoken, already a place where the blessing moved back and forth between the owner and the workers in the ordinary rhythm of the workday. Ruth stepped into a field that was already saturated with that kind of faithfulness, and Boaz noticed her. He asked his foreman, "Who is that young woman?" And the foreman said, "She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers.' So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. From early morning until now. Except for a short rest. That is the faithfulness, not the grand gesture, the early morning, the staying until now, the short rest and then back to the bending and the gathering." And Boaz went to Ruth and said, "Listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. I have charged the young men not to touch you. And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn." And she fell on her face and bowed to the ground and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me since I am a foreigner? Why have I found favor?" She did not know yet. She could not yet see the whole of what God was doing. She only knew that something unexpected had happened in the field where she came to gather leftovers. And she asked why. Boaz answered her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. How you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before." He knew. Word had traveled. The story of the foreign woman who chose loyalty over logic, who clung to her grieving mother-in-law, who said, "Where you go, I will go." That story had reached the field before Ruth did. "The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Under whose wings you have come to take refuge. That image, wings. The same image from Psalm 91. The shadow of the Almighty, the refuge under the feathers, the place of shelter for the one who has left every other shelter behind and chosen to trust in the God of this people in this land. Ruth had come under those wings, without knowing the full weight of what she was stepping into. She had chosen Naomi. She had chosen Naomi's God. She had come to the field and bent down and gathered the leftovers with the faithfulness of someone who did not require the outcome to be guaranteed before she committed to the work. And the God under whose wings she had taken refuge was already preparing what she could not yet see, already directing her feet to the right field, already stirring something in the heart of a man named Boaz who had heard her story and was moved by it. The faithfulness was being seen, every day of it, every early morning and every short rest and every armful of gleaned grain, all of it seen, all of it received, all of it being woven into something larger than a field in Bethlehem. The story of Ruth ends with a marriage and a child and a lineage that leads all the way to David and through David to Jesus, the Moabite woman who said, "Where you go, I will go," who came to a foreign field to gather leftovers, who was faithful in the hidden, ordinary, daily, unremarkable work of caring for a grieving woman and providing for the two of them. That woman is in the lineage of Jesus. Her name is in the genealogy of Matthew chapter 1, listed among the ancestors of the one who would change everything. Ruth, right there, in the line that leads to the manger. The hidden faithfulness was not hidden to God. It was never hidden to God. And what looked from the outside like a foreign woman gleaning in a stranger's field was from God's vantage point a thread in the most important story ever told. Your faithfulness tonight is not hidden either. The faithfulness that no one sees. The caring for the person who cannot give anything back. The staying when the practical reasons said to go. The early mornings and the short rests and the going back to the bending and the gathering even when the gathering is leftovers. God sees it. He has always seen it. And He is weaving it into something. Something that from where you stand looks like ordinary faithfulness in an ordinary field. But from where He stands is part of a story so much larger than what you can currently see. Keep gleaning. The field you are in is the right field. and Boaz has already noticed you. Now we move from a field in Bethlehem to a drought. 1 Kings chapter 17. The prophet Elijah has declared that there will be no rain in Israel for years, and then God tells him to go to a town called Zarephath, because he has directed a widow there to supply him with food. A widow, in a drought, being asked to supply food to a prophet. The logic of this does not hold up. A widow in the ancient world was among the most vulnerable people in society, no husband, no income, no safety net. And in a drought with no rain and no harvest, the vulnerability was compounded into something that looked very much like the end. And God says to Elijah, I have directed a widow there to supply you with food. He has directed her. Present tense, the provision is already arranged. The widow does not know this yet. She is at the town gate gathering sticks, not gathering abundance. Sticks, the last material for the last fire to cook the last meal before the dying begins. That is where we find her. And Elijah calls out to her, Please bring me a little water in a vessel that I may drink. And as she was going to bring it, he called out again, Please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand, a little water. A morsel of bread, the requests of someone who understands that he is asking a great deal from someone who has very little. There is a gentleness in the specificity, not a feast, a morsel, a little. And she answered him, As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. And now I am gathering a couple of sticks that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die. That we may eat it and die. She is not being dramatic, she is being precise. The flour and the oil are the last of everything. And once they are used, there is nothing. She has done the math. The math ends with that sentence. And Elijah said to her, Do not fear. Go and do as you have said. But first make me a small cake from it and bring it to me. And afterward make something for yourself and your son. First make me a small cake. First, before yourself, before your son. Give what you have to the one who is asking. Give the first portion to the stranger at the gate before you give the last portion to the ones you love most. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, The jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be empty until the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth. The jar shall not be spent, the jug shall not be empty. The promise is not that she will have abundance, it is that she will not run out, that the provision will match the need, that every time she reaches into the jar there will be enough for what is required. Not extra, enough. And she went and did as Elijah said. That is the sentence, short, matter of fact. She went and did. No recorded deliberation, no account of the fear that must have been present, no description of the moment when she reached into the jar the first time after giving the first portion away and found that it was not empty. She went and did. And the jar of flour was not spent, and the jug of oil was not empty. The miracle of the flour and the oil is not a dramatic miracle. It is a quiet one, a daily one, the kind that requires you to reach into the jar every morning and discover again that there is something there. The kind that could be doubted on a Tuesday because it is not obvious enough to be undeniable. The kind that asks you to keep reaching even on the days when the reaching feels like the most vulnerable thing you have ever done. She reached every day. And every day there was enough. Not a warehouse of provision suddenly appearing, not the problem solved in one dramatic moment, just the daily reaching, and the daily finding, and the daily enough. This is how God provides for most people in most seasons. Not in the dramatic once for all, in the faithful daily, the manna that comes every morning, the grace that is new every day, the mercy that does not arrive in bulk but in portions that match the need of the day, enough for today. And the widow reached every day, and every day she found it. She had no guarantee that tomorrow would have what today had. She could not check the jar ahead of time and see the supply. She just knew the promise, and she kept reaching. That is the faith. The daily reaching, the daily discovering, the daily this is still here, the daily enough. Tonight, whatever your jar looks like, whatever the resource that has been running low, whatever the season of drought that has made every resource feel precarious, the promise is not that the jar will overflow. It is that the jar will not be empty when you reach into it. Tomorrow morning, reach and find what the widow found. Enough. There is a detail in the story of the widow of Zarephath that is easy to miss. She was not an Israelite. She was from Zarephath, a town in Sidon, outside the borders of Israel, outside the covenant people. and God chose her. He said to Elijah, "I have directed a widow there to supply you." He did not say, "I have directed an Israelite widow." He directed this woman, this foreign woman, this woman outside the expected categories of provision, like Ruth, like the woman in the crowd who was ceremonially unclean. Like so many in the stories of God, the ones he chooses to work through and to provide for are often the ones that the categories of the day would have excluded. He is not confined to the expected. He is not limited to the usual channels. He does not need the right credentials or the right background or the right standing to work through someone or to provide for them. He chose a foreign widow to host his prophet. He chose a foreign gleaner to carry the lineage of his son. He chose the unceremonious touch from behind in a crowd to demonstrate the power of faith. He works in the unexpected places, through the unexpected people, with the unexpected resources, the handful of flour in a jar, the leftovers in a stranger's field, the edge of a cloak in a crowd. These are the materials he works with, small, overlooked, on the edge of empty. And he takes them and does what only he can do with what is offered honestly and faithfully. He makes it enough. He makes it more than enough. He makes it part of a story that no one in the moment could have seen coming. Whatever you are holding tonight, however little it seems, however on the edge of empty, offer it. He will do the rest. And now we come to Anna. Luke chapter 2. The presentation of the infant Jesus in the temple. Mary and Joseph bringing their firstborn son to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord according to the law. A young family, a baby, an ordinary act of religious observance. And in the temple, an old woman. There was a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived with her husband 7 years from when she was a virgin, and then as a widow until she was 84. She did not depart from the temple, worshipping with fasting and prayer night and day. She was 84 years old. She had been married for 7 years, and then her husband died, and she had been a widow ever since. If she was in her mid-20s when she was widowed, she had been in the temple for 60 years. Give or take, 60 years, 6 decades of showing up, of fasting and prayer night and day, of keeping watch in the sacred place, of not departing from the temple, of being present, faithful, consistent, year after year after decade, waiting for something she had been promised, waiting to see the consolation of Israel, waiting for the one who was coming. And then one ordinary morning, a young couple walked through the temple courts carrying a baby, and Anna knew. 60 years of prayer, and she knew. She came up at that very hour and began to give thanks to God and to speak of him to all who were waiting for the redemption of Jerusalem. At that very hour. She was in the right place at the right hour because she had been in that place for 60 years. The knowing was not separate from the staying. The recognition was not separate from the decades of prayer and fasting and presence. She was ready to see because she had been preparing to see for longer than most people had been alive. At that very hour she knew, and she gave thanks, and she spoke to all who were waiting for the redemption of Jerusalem, not to the crowds, to the ones who were waiting. She knew who they were because she was one of them. She had been waiting longer than any of them, and she recognized the things she had been waiting for. Her name is not famous. Her story takes 3 verses in the Gospel of Luke. She did not preach a sermon that was recorded or perform a miracle that was witnessed by thousands or write a letter that became scripture. She prayed for 60 years in the temple night and day, and she was there at the right moment, prepared by all the moments that came before it. That is the hidden faithfulness, the 60 years of prayer that made possible 3 verses of recognition, the decades of showing up that prepared the heart to see what the undisciplined eye would have missed. A baby, in the arms of a young mother, in the ordinary traffic of the temple courts. She saw it, because she had been looking for it for 60 years. There is something I want to say to the ones who feel like their faithfulness has gone unnoticed, the ones who have been showing up for years in the quiet, praying, serving, loving, staying, doing the faithful small thing day after day in the season when nothing dramatic is happening and no one seems to be keeping track. God is keeping track, not in a ledger, not in a record that will be reviewed for performance, in the way that a faithful God keeps track of a faithful people. With attention, with love, with the knowledge that the years of the quiet faithfulness are preparing something, are forming something, are making the heart ready for the moment that will one day arrive. Anna did not know on year 30 of her temple vigil that she would be the one to recognize the Messiah. She did not know on year 45 or year 55 or the morning of year 60 that this was the day. She just kept showing up. And she was there. You do not know what the faithfulness is preparing you for. You cannot see from inside the quiet years what the quiet years are building, but the one who sees from the beginning to the end knows. And he is tending the faithfulness with the same care he tends everything he has made. Your 60 years might be 6 months, or 6 weeks, or 6 days. The length is not the point. The showing up is the point. Keep showing up. Keep fasting and praying night and day in whatever your temple is. The prayer room, the quiet chair in the early morning, the journal that no one reads, the faithful service that no one praises. Keep showing up. Your hour is coming, and you will be ready when it does because you were there all the time before it. 3 stories of hidden faithfulness. Ruth in the field, faithful to a grieving woman and a foreign god, and the ordinary daily work of the gleaning. Finding favor she did not know she was building toward. Landing in the right field by what looked like chance and was actually providence. Becoming part of a lineage she could never have imagined. The widow of Zarephath, faithful with the last of everything, giving the first portion of her last meal to a stranger at the gate and reaching into the jar every morning and finding that the promise held, day after day. Enough. The quiet miracle of the daily provision that never ran out. Anna in the temple, faithful for 60 years, night and day, fasting and prayer, not departing from the sacred place, waiting without knowing when the waiting would end, and being there at the right hour, prepared by all the hours before it, seeing what the unprepared eye would have missed. Hidden faithfulness, all 3 of them, and all 3 of them held by the same God who sees the gleaning and fills the jar and prepares the heart for the hour of recognition. He sees yours too. Whatever the hidden faithfulness is in your life, whatever the thing you've been doing in the quiet for longer than felt reasonable, whatever the field you have been working in and the jar you have been reaching into and the temple you have been showing up to, he sees it. He has always seen it, and he is weaving it into something you cannot yet see from inside the gleaning, but something real, something prepared, something that will one day become clear in a way that makes the faithfulness make sense. Trust the gleaning. Trust the jar. Trust the showing up. Let us pray. Father, we are grateful tonight for the hidden ones, for Ruth and the widow and Anna, for the people whose faithfulness was quiet and daily and unglamorous and entirely seen by you. Thank you for the field, for the happenings that are not really happenings at all but your hand moving in the ordinary. For Boaz who noticed, for the lineage that ran through the foreign gleaner all the way to the manger, for the reminder that the faithfulness we offer in the small ordinary places is never small to you. Thank you for the jar, for the promise that it will not be spent, for the daily provision that asks us to reach every morning and find what we found yesterday, for the miracle that is quiet enough to miss if you are not paying attention but undeniable if you are, for the enough that comes again and again and again. Thank you for Anna, for 60 years of her, for the faithfulness that most people would have abandoned after 6 months or 6 years, for the prepared heart, for the recognition at the right hour, for the 3 verses in Luke that carry the weight of 6 decades of prayer. Let us be faithful in the hidden places tonight, not because anyone is watching, not because the outcome is guaranteed before we begin, not because the years of the gleaning have been comfortable, or the jar has always felt full, or the temple has always felt alive, because you are faithful. And faithfulness calls to faithfulness, and the one who fills the jar and directs the feet to the right field and prepares the heart for the right hour is worthy of every quiet year we offer. Thank you for seeing what no one else sees. You have always been watching. Watch over the ones who are gleaning tonight, the ones who are doing the humble work, the bending and the gathering and the going back to do it again, the ones whose contribution feels like leftovers, who are working in the edges of things, who have not been given the main harvest but are faithfully taking what has been left. Let them find Boaz in the field. Let them find favor that they did not know they were building toward. Let the happenings of their ordinary days begin to reveal themselves as the providence of a God who was directing their feet all along. Watch over the ones who are reaching into the jar, the ones whose resources are running low, who are in the drought season, who gave the first portion to the one who asked and are now watching to see if the promise holds. Hold it. Fill the jar each morning before they reach. Let the enough be there, the daily miraculous quiet enough that asks nothing dramatic of them except the reaching. Watch over the ones in their long vigil, the ones who have been showing up for years in the quiet, who are tired in the way that only the long faithful get tired. Not the tired of one hard day, but the tired of many faithful years with no visible turning point. Let them feel tonight that the years are not wasted, that the showing up is being recorded, that the heart being formed in the decades of faithfulness is being made ready for a moment that is coming. Keep them in the temple. Keep them at the prayer. Keep them faithful in the hidden place just a little longer. Their hour is coming. And they will be ready. The night holds all three of them. Ruth, still faithful, still gleaning, still walking the road that loyalty chose and logic could not understand. The widow, still reaching into the jar, still finding the enough, still feeding the prophet and herself and her son on the daily provision of a God who keeps his promises one morning at a time. Anna, still in the temple, still at the prayer, still fasting and watching and waiting for the one who is coming, not knowing how close the hour is, just staying faithful to the staying. And they are held by the same God who holds you tonight. He sees the gleaning you have been doing in the field of your life, the faithfulness in the work that is available even when the available work is not glamorous. He sees the reaching into the jar, the daily trusting of a daily God who provides in portions that match the day. He sees the vigil, the long quiet faithful showing up in the place where you have promised to be. All of it seen, all of it received, all of it woven. Rest now in that knowledge. Let the stories settle into the places where they are needed. The place in you that is tired of the gleaning. The place in you that is afraid the jar will finally be empty. The place in you that has been in the vigil so long it has forgotten why it started. He knows those places, and he is speaking into them tonight. The field is the right field. The jar will not be empty. The hour is coming. Rest, he is faithful. And the hidden faithfulness is never hidden to him. We are deeper into the night now. The stories have been working in you. The boy in the dark temple, and the woman who reached through the crowd, and the widow who kept reaching into the jar. The gleaner in the field and the old woman who had been faithful for 60 years in a place no one was watching. All of those stories have been laying something down in the quiet parts of you, the parts that are below the thinking, below the processing, in the place where truth settles when the noise is finally quiet enough to let it. Tonight we go to Jesus directly, not to the miracles that made crowds, to the moments that found individuals, the ones that happened in the margins of the day, on the road, in the dust, in the space between where someone was going and where they ended up. A small man up in a tree who was not supposed to be the point of that particular walk through Jericho. A woman left alone in the dirt by a crowd that had been ready to stone her, and a Jesus who bent down and wrote something in the ground. 2 disciples walking away from Jerusalem on the road to Emmaus with broken hearts, and a stranger who fell into step beside them and stayed until the bread was broken. These are 3 of the tenderest moments in the Gospels, not the most dramatic, not the most theologically complex, the most intimate. Jesus, one person at a time, in the moment that person most needed to be found. Let them find you tonight. In whatever the moment is that you most need to be found in, he is already on his way. Jericho was a city Jesus was passing through. That detail matters. He was on his way somewhere else. He had a destination, a purpose for the journey. He was not wandering. He was passing through Jericho on his way to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem at this point in the Gospel of Luke was the direction everything was heading. The cross was ahead. The weight of what was coming was already present in every step he took. He was passing through. And in Jericho there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. 2 strikes already in the ledger of public opinion. Tax collector and rich. In first-century Judea, those two things together made a man despised at the community level. Tax collectors were Jews who worked for Rome, who collected the taxes their own people owed to the occupying empire, who often collected more than was owed and kept the difference. They were considered traitors, collaborators, the kind of person you did eat with or welcome or include. And Zacchaeus was the chief one, the head of the operation. He was seeking to see who Jesus was. That phrase, seeking to see who Jesus was. There is something in it that is more than curiosity, more than the casual interest of someone watching a famous person pass through town. He was seeking. There is a wanting in the seeking, a reaching in it. But he could not because of the crowd, for he was small of stature, small, and the crowd was large. And no one in the crowd was making room for the chief tax collector. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. He ran and climbed a tree, a grown man, a wealthy man, a man of professional standing and public reputation, running ahead of a crowd and climbing a tree like a child who wants to see the parade. There is something wonderfully undignified about this image, the chief tax collector up in the branches, not because he had been invited, not because anyone had made room, but because the wanting to see was stronger than the dignity that said stay on the ground where grown men of standing belong. He climbed the tree, and Jesus came to the place, not past the place, to it. He stopped directly under the tree and looked up. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." He knew his name. In a city he was passing through, with a crowd pressing around him and Jerusalem ahead and the weight of everything that was coming. He stopped under a specific tree, looked up at a specific man, and said his name, Zacchaeus. Not you up there, not tax collector, Zacchaeus. The name that was his before he became everything the crowd had decided he was. The name that belonged to the person underneath the reputation. Hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. Must, not would like to. Not if it is convenient. Must. As if this was the destination all along. As if passing through Jericho was never really about passing through, so he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. Joyfully. The word lands differently when you remember what the reception had been like for Zacchaeus from everyone else in that city for the whole of his adult life. Not joyfully, with contempt, with a particular coldness reserved for those who had chosen the wrong side. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Of course they grumbled. The grumbling was the expected response. And Jesus had known it would be the response before he stopped under the tree. He stopped anyway. And something happened in that house, something that the text does not describe in detail, but that shows up in what Zacchaeus says when he stands before Jesus. "Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold." This is not a man performing for the crowd. This is a man who has been encountered, who has had something happen to him in the presence of Jesus that has rearranged something deep, who is not calculating the cost of the giving, who is giving before the calculation is finished because the encounter has made the old calculations feel irrelevant. And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost, to seek and to save the lost." He was not passing through Jericho. He was seeking. And the one he found was up in a tree because no one else in the city had made room for him in the crowd. Jesus made room, under the tree, at the table, in the lineage of Abraham. He always makes room for the ones the crowd leaves out. There is something in the story of Zacchaeus that I want to stay with tonight. He was in the tree because the crowd would not let him through. That is worth naming. He wanted to see Jesus. He had the wanting, the seeking, the running ahead. All of that was genuine, and it was enough to get him to the edge of the road. But the crowd was in the way, and no one moved. So he found another way. He did not go home. He did not decide the wanting was not worth the effort. He ran ahead, he climbed a tree, he put himself in an undignified position in a public place because the wanting to see was greater than the wanting to look like someone who had it together. What crowd is in your way tonight? Not necessarily people. The crowd can be the noise, the accumulated busyness, the weight of the day that pressed in and made it hard to see past. the opinions you carry about yourself that say people like you do not get to be in the front of this particular crowd, the shame, the reputation, the history, climb the tree anyway, whatever the undignified position is, whatever the thing that looks a little foolish from the outside, whatever the reaching that requires you to get above the crowd that is in the way, do it, because he is coming down that road, and he is going to stop, and he is going to look up, and he is going to say your name. Hurry and come down. I must stay at your house today. He already knows which tree you are in. He has known since before he entered the city he was always going to stop here. Under this specific tree, at this specific hour. Come down. He is waiting at your door. Now we go to a scene that is difficult and tender in equal measure. John chapter 8. The temple courts, early in the morning. Jesus is teaching. And then a commotion. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They used this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. That is the context. The woman is not the point to the men who brought her. She is a prop, a test case, a theological argument with a human face. They are not interested in her guilt or her pain or the full story of whatever led to the moment she was caught. They are interested in whether Jesus will contradict Moses or contradict Rome, and either answer will serve their purpose. She is standing there while they make her into an argument. And Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. He bent down. The whole crowd is standing and accusing and waiting for the verdict, and Jesus bends down, gets lower, puts himself below the level of the argument, below the level of the accusation, closer to the ground where she is standing, and he writes something in the dirt. We do not know what he wrote. The scripture does not tell us, and the not telling is part of the point. It does not matter what he wrote. What matters is what he did. He created a pause, a silence in the middle of the noise. A moment between the accusation and the verdict where something else became possible. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And then he bent down again and wrote on the ground. Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone. Not a legal argument, not a theological counter, a question, an invitation to self-examination. A single sentence that redirected every pointed finger back toward the one pointing. And at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there, one at a time, beginning with the older ones, the ones who had lived longest and accumulated the most evidence of their own failure. They dropped their stones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman. And Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin, neither do I condemn you." The only one in the crowd who actually had the right to throw a stone, the only one in the whole history of humanity who has been without sin. He looked at the woman who had been made into an argument and said, "Neither do I condemn you," not because the sin did not exist, not because what had not happened, but because condemnation was not what this moment was for. This moment was for something else, for the one without sin to say, "I see you, and I choose mercy. Go and live differently. Neither do I condemn you." Let us stay with the image of Jesus in the dirt. He bent down twice, once before he spoke and once after. 2 moments of lowering himself below the level of the crowd. 2 moments of being closer to the ground than to the argument happening above it. There is something in this image that I think is one of the most quietly radical things in the Gospels. The Son of God, in the dirt, writing something that was not important enough to record. Creating a pause in the middle of a scene that was entirely about power and accusation, and who gets to define this woman's life with the stones they are holding. He got low. He did not manage the situation from a height. He did not adjudicate from a position of superiority. He bent down. He got close to the ground where the woman was standing, where the shame was heaviest and the air was thinnest and the outcome felt most certain. He went there. Whatever the dirt is in your life tonight, whatever the thing you have been standing in, the thing that has made others feel entitled to their stones, the history that has been used as an argument against you, The scene you have been placed in the middle of, while others decided what to do with you, he is in the dirt with you, not above it. Not watching from the safe distance of judgment, in it. Writing something, creating a pause between the accusation and the verdict, holding the space where something else becomes possible. And when he straightens up, when he speaks, what he says is not the verdict the crowd was expecting. Neither do I condemn you, that is what he says, to you tonight. In the dirt, in the shame, in the scene that others made you the center of, neither do I condemn you. And live. Now we come to the road. And this is perhaps the most gentle of all the resurrection stories, the one that feels the most human, the most like the kind of thing that happens to ordinary people in the ordinary hours after an extraordinary grief. Luke chapter 24. The same day as the resurrection, two of the disciples, not the famous ones, not Peter or John, two whose names we almost do not know, Cleopas and someone unnamed, walking away from Jerusalem, walking away. They had been there through all of it, and now they were leaving, going back to Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem, 7 miles in the direction of the ordinary, away from the tomb and the women's report and the confusion of the empty grave. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened, just walking and talking, processing, the way people do when they have been through something too large to hold quietly, when the inside of the thing needs to become words before it can begin to make sense. And as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He came up and walked along with them, not announced, not dramatic, not preceded by light or accompanied by music. He simply came up alongside two grieving people on a road and fell into step, just walked with them. And the walking with them, the being present to their walking, the joining of their pace and their road without requiring them to stop or change direction. That was the beginning of the encounter. He met them where they were going, not where he wanted them to be. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. Downcast. The word for a face that has lost its hope. That is carrying something too heavy to hold up. The same word used of Hannah before she prayed in the temple, the face of someone who has been waiting and hoping and has arrived at the place where the waiting seems to have led nowhere. Their faces were downcast, and one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" There is something almost tender and almost comic about this question. Are you the only one who does not know? Asked of the one who is the center of the things that happened, the only one who knows everything about the things that happened, being asked if he has heard. "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they answered. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel." We had hoped. Past tense. The hope was in the past tense now. We had hoped. Before the crucifixion ended the hoping. Before the Friday made the hoping feel naive. Before the Saturday proved what Fridays always seem to prove, that the hoping was too much, that the things hoped for were not the things that actually happen. We had hoped. And now we are walking away. Jesus responded to the "we had hoped" with patience. "How foolish you are," he said, "and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Beginning with Moses and all the prophets. He walked with them for 7 miles and taught them the whole of the scripture as it related to what had just happened. The whole sweep of it. From the beginning, the promise in the garden and the sacrifice of Abraham and the Passover lamb and the suffering servant of Isaiah and all the threads that had been running through the whole story toward the moment they were walking away from. He explained it to them, and they still did not know who he was. They arrived at Emmaus and he acted as if he were going farther, and they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, the day is almost over, stay with us." 2 grieving disciples asking a stranger to stay for supper. Because the conversation had been good, because something about the walking with him had made the road feel different, because something in the teaching had made the "we had hoped" feel less past tense than it had when they left Jerusalem. Stay with us. And he went in to stay with them When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Then, after the walking, after the 7 miles, after the teaching through Moses and all the prophets, after the meal and the table and the bread taken and blessed and broken and given, then, not on the road, not in the teaching, not in the moment of the most profound theological explanation they had ever received, in the bread, in the breaking, in the gesture so familiar they had seen it before, the hands that they had watched break bread on another evening in another room not long ago, they knew the hands, and he disappeared from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? Were not our hearts burning?" They felt it on the road, but did not know what they were feeling. The warmth was there before the recognition. The presence was real before it was identified. Something was happening in the walking and the talking that they could not name until afterward. Were not our hearts burning? That is sometimes how it works. The burning before the knowing, the warmth in the chest that precedes the understanding, the sense that something is present and significant without yet being able to say what. You may have felt it tonight, in the stories, in the quiet, in the slowing of the breath and the settling of the body, something burning quietly in the place where the tired things are. That is him, on the road with you, teaching, walking alongside, waiting for the moment of the bread to make the presence known. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem, 7 miles back, at night. After the day they had already walked, after the exhaustion of grief and confusion and walking and supper, they got up and went back. Because when you have encountered the risen Jesus on the road, you cannot stay in Emmaus. The direction has changed. The walking away has become walking back. The past tense hoping has become present tense knowing. He is risen, and everything that was walking away is now walking back toward the place where that matters. That is what the encounter does. It reverses the direction. It turns the face from downcast to lifted. It changes we had hoped into we know. It makes the 7 miles back feel different from the 7 miles away. The road is the same road. The distance is the same distance. The body is just as tired. But something has changed. The burning in the chest, the opened eyes, the recognition in the breaking of the bread. He was there all along, on the road, in the teaching, in the meal, in the stranger who fell into step beside 2 people who were walking away and asked them what they were talking about. He was there. He is always there. On the roads that lead away from where the hoping happened. In the 7-mile walks toward the ordinary after the extraordinary has undone everything you thought you understood. He comes up alongside and he walks with you. And somewhere in the walking, in the teaching, in the breaking of the bread at the end of the long road, the eyes open and the heart that was burning finally knows why. 3 tender moments. Zacchaeus in the tree, the man the crowd had written off, who ran ahead and climbed a tree and was found by the one who was looking for him before he knew he was being looked for, who came down joyfully and received the guest who had already decided to stay, whose house was full of salvation before the night was over. The woman in the dirt, left there by a crowd with stones, found by the one who bent down and got into the dirt with her, who wrote something no one remembers in the ground while the crowd that was ready to end her life walked away one by one, beginning with the oldest, who heard the only verdict that matters from the only one who had the right to give a different one. Neither do I condemn you. The 2 on the road to Emmaus, walking away with downcast faces and past tense hoping, found by the one who fell into step beside them and walked all 7 miles and taught them and stayed for supper and broke the bread, whose hearts had been burning the whole time without knowing why. 3 people found by Jesus in the in-between, not in the temple, not in the synagogue, not in the prescribed sacred space, in a tree, in the dirt, on a road going the wrong direction. He finds people in the in-between, in the places between where you were and where you are going, in the undignified positions, in the dirt, on the roads that lead away from the hoping. He finds people there. He finds you there, tonight, in this bed, in this dark, in the in-between of this specific night with all its specific weight. He is here, in the in-between. The details matter in these stories. Let us hold them gently before we move into the prayer. He knew Zacchaeus by name before Zacchaeus said a word. In a city he was passing through, among a crowd of people pressing around him. He looked up at one specific tree and spoke one specific name. He knows your name, the same way, the specific one, not a general awareness of your existence, but a personal knowledge of your particularity, your history, your tree, your reason for climbing it, your fear about coming down. He knows. He bent down in the dirt, twice. He did not manage the crisis from a position of height. He got low. He went to where she was. He created a pause in the middle of the noise and the accusation. He gets low for you. He comes to where you are, not requiring you to climb to where he is, bending down, writing something in the dirt of your life, creating a pause between the accusation and the verdict. He fell into step beside them. He matched their pace, their road, their direction. He did not wait for them to turn around before he joined them. He met them going the wrong way and walked with them until the direction changed on its own. He falls into step beside you, even when the direction is away, even when the face is downcast and the hoping is past tense. He comes alongside. He matches your pace. He asks what you are talking about. He is interested in the thing you are processing, the grief you are walking out, the conversation you are having with yourself in the dark about what happened and what it means and whether the hoping was ever going to lead anywhere. He is walking beside you in that. Right now, on this road, in this night, let us pray. Father, we are grateful tonight for these 3 encounters. For Zacchaeus found in a tree by a Jesus who was passing through but was never really passing through. For the woman found in the dirt by the one who bent down and said, "Neither do I condemn you." For the 2 found on a road going the wrong direction by the one who fell into step and walked the whole 7 miles with them. Thank you for the way Jesus finds people, not in the expected places, in the trees and the dirt and the wrong roads, in the undignified positions and the shamed positions and the walking away positions. He goes there. He has always gone there. Thank you that he knows names. Not categories, not types of people. Names. The specific, personal, intimate name that belongs to one person and not another. The name that carries the whole history of the person who bears it. He knows our names. He is speaking them tonight, in the quiet, in the way that only he can speak them. With the knowledge of everything we have been and everything we are and everything he intends for us to become. Thank you that he bends down, that he is not too high or too holy or too important to get into the dirt with us, that the pause he creates in the middle of the accusation is real, that the words he speaks from the dirt are the truest verdict ever given. Neither do I condemn you. Let that land tonight, for the ones who need it most, for the ones who have been standing in the dirt of something for a long time. Let the crowd walk away one by one. Let the stones drop. Let the only one who matters speak. Neither do I condemn you. Go and live. Watch over the ones who are up in their tree tonight, who have been overlooked and left out and not given room in the crowd, who are watching the life they want from a height because the crowd between them and it is too dense to push through, who are willing to look a little foolish from the outside if it means getting close enough to see. Look up at their tree, say their name, tell them to hurry and come down, go to their house, stay with them, let them receive joyfully the one the crowd would not have predicted would stop for them. Watch over the ones who are standing in the dirt, who have been made into an argument, who are waiting for the verdict, who have been surrounded by people holding stones and are not sure what comes next. Bend down beside them, create the pause, write something in the ground. Let the crowd walk away one at a time, beginning with the oldest. And when only you are left, say it. Neither do I condemn you. Watch over the ones on the road going away, who are walking in the direction of giving up, not because they wanted to give up, but because what happened made the staying feel impossible, who are processing the thing that broke the hope, who are talking about it with whoever is beside them and trying to make sense of what does not yet make sense. Fall into step, ask what they are talking about, walk the whole road with them, stay for supper, break the bread, and let their eyes open at the table. Let the heart that has been burning without knowing why finally understand what it has been feeling. You are here, on every road, beside every walker, in every direction, even the direction away. You are here. The night is deep now. 3 encounters of Jesus with 3 people in 3 unexpected places. And through all 3 the same thing was true. He came to them. He did not wait for them to find the right place or the right posture or the right spiritual state before he showed up. He came to where they were, up in the tree, standing in the dirt, walking the wrong way on a road 7 miles from everything that had happened. He came, and he is here tonight, in this room, in the quiet, in the dark that is not empty but full of the presence that came to find a tax collector in a tree and a woman in the dirt and 2 disciples walking away from their hope. He has come to find you, not because you found the right position, not because the faith has been strong or the showing up has been consistent or the tree you climbed was the right tree. He comes because that is who he is, the one who seeks and saves the lost, who bends down into the dirt, who falls into step on the roads that lead away. He is here. Let the body be heavy. Let the breath be slow. Let the mind release the last of what it has been holding. The one who knows your name is in the room. The one who bends down is beside you. The one who walks alongside is here on this road called tonight. And your heart is burning, whether you can feel it or not. He is here, and he is not going anywhere. The night is well along now. You have traveled through the quiet encounters and the hidden faithfulness and the tender moments on the roads and in the dirt and up in the trees where Jesus finds people. And if the stories have been doing what stories do when they are given the right kind of quiet to work in, something has been settling, not figured out, not resolved, settled, the way sediment settles in still water, slowly, without effort, just by the natural movement of things finding their level when the rushing stops. Tonight we come to the stories of rest and provision, not the dramatic provision, not the fire from heaven or the walls falling down, the daily kind, the bread that appeared on the ground every morning in the wilderness, the angel who let a broken prophet sleep and then made him food, the nets that had been empty all night and filled at a single word from the shore. These are the stories of a God who provides in the ordinary, who tends to the practical, who knows that people need bread and sleep and fish, who does not only meet the spiritual need but the physical one, who made the body and knows what the body requires and has always been in the business of providing it. Tonight we receive that provision, not just the theological truth of it, the actual experience of it, the body that is heavy and the breath that is slow and the mind that is finally quiet enough to receive what it could not receive while it was still busy trying to produce everything itself. He provides, tonight, in this room, in the dark. Receive it. Exodus chapter 16. The wilderness of sin, between Egypt and Sinai. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin. And there the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. That is the complaint. And it is a very human complaint. The desert was real, the hunger was real, the uncertainty about where the next meal was coming from was real. And behind the complaint about Moses was a quieter fear about God. Does he know we are here? Does he see the need? Will the provision come, or have we been brought to this wilderness to be forgotten in it? Does he care? And the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. Rain down bread from heaven, not deliver it in bulk, not provide a storehouse they could draw from at will. Rain it down, every day, enough for that day, no more. There is something in this that requires trust on a daily basis. You cannot gather 3 weeks' worth on a Monday and be done with it. You go out each day, and each day it is there, and you gather what is needed for the day, and you trust that tomorrow the ground will have it again, daily bread. The phrase Jesus would later put in the prayer he taught his disciples. Give us this day our daily bread, not our yearly bread, not our storehoused, indefinitely secure bread. Daily, today's need met today, and trust that tomorrow's need will be met tomorrow. The people of Israel called the bread manna. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, What is it? For they did not know what it was. What is it? That is what manna means. The name they gave to the provision was a question. What is this thing? This white flaky substance on the ground every morning. This thing that was not there the night before and was there when the dew lifted. This thing that tasted like wafers made with honey. What is it? They did not need to know what it was in order to eat it. The provision did not require explanation before it could be received. It just required the going out, the looking down, the gathering of what was there. Every morning for 40 years, the manna was there. 40 years is not a temporary provision, it is not a crisis measure. It is the ordinary daily rhythm of a people who had been brought to a place where their only option was dependence, where the production of their own food was not possible, where the land did not cooperate and the resources were not available, and the only way to eat was to go out each morning and find what had been left on the ground. And every morning for 40 years it was there. There is a generation of Israelites who grew up never knowing a morning when the manna was not there, who never had to wonder if today would be the day it stopped, who could not remember the Egypt of the pots of meat because they had been born into the daily provision of a faithful God. That is the normal they grew up inside of. The daily faithfulness so consistent it became the background of life. That is still the normal. For the ones who go out each morning and gather what is there, the manna has not stopped. The manna came with instructions. Each person is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. Enough for each person, not a surplus for storing, not a deficit that leaves some without. Each person their omer. The provision was calibrated to the need. Exactly right, not wasteful and not insufficient. And Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." But some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning. And it was full of maggots and began to smell. The hoarding did not work. The attempt to take tomorrow's security into today did not work. The thing that was given for today was not designed to last until tomorrow. It was for today. And tomorrow would have its own. That is the lesson the wilderness was teaching. Not just how to eat, how to trust, how to live in the posture of the open hand, how to receive today's provision today and then trust that tomorrow's provision will come tomorrow. The hoarding mind says, what if tomorrow there is nothing? So I will take extra today. I will store against the uncertainty. I will protect myself from the possibility of the morning when the ground is empty. And the manna that was hoarded became maggots, because it was not designed for that. It was designed for today. And today is what it is good for. Tonight. Whatever you have been hoarding against an uncertain tomorrow, whatever the anxiety about the future provision that has been keeping the fists closed and the stores counted and the margins calculated, the manna is for today, and tomorrow the ground will have what tomorrow needs. Go out in the morning and look down. It will be there. There is a day in the wilderness story that breaks the pattern. The 6th day. Moses told the people to gather twice as much, because the 7th day was the Sabbath, the day of rest. On that day, there would be no manna on the ground, and the double portion gathered on the 6th day would not spoil overnight. So the provision itself built in the rest. The manna did not come on the Sabbath, not because God forgot, because the Sabbath was the point, the day that was different, the day that was not for gathering or producing or going out to find what was needed, the day that was for receiving without working, for being without doing, for resting in the provision that had already been given. God built the rest into the daily bread, and the double portion on the 6th day held overnight. The thing that had not held any other night held on this one, because the need was different, because the Sabbath required a different kind of provision. And the God who provided the manna knew what the Sabbath required and provided for it in advance. He provides for the rest, not just for the working days, for the stopping days, for the days when the gathering is not supposed to happen. He has already thought about those. He has already provided the double portion on the day before so that the Sabbath can be what the Sabbath is meant to be. Tonight is a kind of Sabbath, a kind of stopping. The body that has been going out and gathering all day is here now, in the rest, in the not gathering, in the receiving of what was given before the working stopped. He provided for this before the day ended. Rest in the double portion. The manna for the Sabbath is already on the ground. Now we come to a tree, not a sycamore tree this time, a juniper tree, in the wilderness, and under it a man who has had enough. We talked about Elijah in another night, the prophet who declared the drought and then hid by the brook and was fed by ravens and then went to the widow of Zarephath, who stood on Mount Carmel and called down fire from heaven and watched the prophets of Baal be defeated, and then ran. He ran from Jezebel, who had threatened his life, ran into the wilderness, a day's journey, and sat down under a juniper tree and prayed that he might die. He had just seen fire fall from heaven and now he was under a tree asking to die. It is one of the most human moments in all of Scripture. The prophet who had just witnessed the most dramatic demonstration of God's power in a generation, who had been a vessel for the miraculous, who had stood on the mountain and called and been answered, was now under a tree, exhausted, afraid, done. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. I have had enough." Have you ever said that? Not necessarily out loud, but in the place where the honest things live, the place that only you and God hear from. I have had enough. The thing that had been required of you for too long, the thing that depleted the reserves you did not know you were drawing from until the day the reserves were gone, the thing that left you under a juniper tree in the wilderness not sure how to continue. Elijah was there, the great prophet, under the tree. And God did not rebuke him for being there. Then he lay down under the tree and fell asleep. He slept. The great prophet who had called down fire from heaven lay down under a juniper tree in the wilderness and slept. And God let him. There is no rebuke in this story, no correction, no instruction about getting up and having more faith and trusting the process. God looked at Elijah under the tree and did the most practical thing available. He let him sleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. Bread and water, hot bread baked over coals. The specificity of this matters, not manna on the ground, not water from a rock, baked bread. The kind that takes time and attention and care, the kind that someone made for you. An angel made bread for Elijah. He ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. The journey is too much for you. Not you are weak, not you should be further along. Not this is embarrassing for a prophet of your standing. The journey is too much for you." An acknowledgement, a genuine recognition of the weight of the road that Elijah had been walking. The journey is too much. And so, more bread, more water, more sleep, the provision matching the need, not just the spiritual need but the physical one. The body that needed food, the soul that needed sleep, the prophet who needed someone to make bread for him and let him rest. God provided all of it, so he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. 40 days. On the strength of that food, the bread the angel made over the coals and the water in the jar, that was enough for 40 days. Not because the bread was remarkable in quantity, because it was provided by the one who knows what the body requires for the journey ahead, who calibrates the provision to the need, who fed the prophet not just for one day but for the 40 days that were coming. The food was enough because God made it enough. And Horeb, the mountain of God, the same mountain where Moses had encountered God in the burning bush, the same mountain where the law was given, the same mountain where the ground was most sacred. Elijah got there, on angel bread and wilderness water and the sleep that God allowed him under the juniper tree. He got there. The prophet who had said, "I have had enough," who had lain down under a tree in the wilderness ready to die, got up, ate the bread the angel made, slept, got up again, ate again, and walked 40 days to the mountain of God. The provision was the turning point, not the rebuke, not the instruction to be more faithful. The bread, the water, the sleep, the simple tending of the physical need by a God who knows what human beings require when they have had enough. If you are under your juniper tree tonight, if the journey has been too much, let the angel touch you. Eat the bread, drink the water, sleep. The mountain is ahead, and the provision will be enough for the journey. And now we go to the water. Luke chapter 5. The Sea of Galilee. Early morning. After a night of fishing that produced nothing, Simon Peter and his partners had been out all night. The boats were back at the shore. The nets were being washed. The night was over, and it had yielded nothing. And Jesus was standing by the lake, teaching, the crowd pressing in around him. And he saw 2 boats at the water's edge. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Just a little from shore, not a voyage, not a new expedition, just enough distance to create a teaching platform, enough water between him and the crowd to give him space to speak. Simon had been up all night, his nets were washed, his boat was ready to be put away, and a teacher from Nazareth asked him to push back out a little so the crowd could hear better. He did it. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch, after the night of nothing, after the washing of the nets, after the done for the day and ready to go home. Jesus said, "Go back out into the deep water and try again." Simon answered, "Master, we worked hard all night and haven't caught anything." That is the honest answer. The practical answer. The answer of a fisherman who knows these waters and knows what a night of nothing means and knows that the day is not typically better for catching than the night. We worked hard all night and caught nothing. The expertise saying to the teacher what the expertise knows. We have already tried this, we know how this goes, the night was empty and the day is not the time for this. And then, but because you say so, I will let down the nets, but because you say so. 5 words that carry the whole of what trust looks like in the practical moment. Not because I think it will work, not because the logic supports another attempt, not because my expertise suggests this is the right move, because you say so. That is the faith. Not the faith that says I understand why this will work. The faith that says I do not understand why this will work and I am doing it anyway because the one asking is the one I am trusting, because you say so. And when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. The night of nothing, the washed nets, the done for the day, and then the word from the shore, and then the obedience, and then the nets so full they started to break. Because you say so. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. Go away from me. Not thank you, not this is amazing, go away." Because the miracle had created a gap between what Peter knew about himself and what was standing in his boat, between the ordinary fisherman who had just hauled in an impossible catch and the one who had told him to try again, "For I am a sinful man." The awareness of the distance, the sudden clarity about who he was in the presence of who Jesus was, the instinct to create space rather than stay close. But Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will fish for people. Do not be afraid." The same words he said to the disciples in the storm, the same words he said at the Transfiguration, the same words the angels said at the tomb. Do not be afraid. The presence of Jesus creates awe before it creates comfort. The gap is real. The distance between us and him is real. And he says into that gap, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will fish for people." The impossible catch was not the point. It was a demonstration, a preview, a showing of what becomes possible when the empty night ends and the word from the shore is obeyed and the nets go down in the deep water because he said so. This is what your life will be from now on. Not the empty boats, the full ones, not the night of nothing. The morning of more than the nets can hold, because you said yes, because you pushed back out when the night had already said no, because you said, because you say so. I will let down the nets. Let us hold these 3 stories of provision together. The manna on the ground, new every morning, enough for the day. The double portion on the 6th day so the Sabbath could be what the Sabbath was meant to be. 40 years of daily faithfulness on the ground of the wilderness. The provision that required going out and looking down. That could not be stored or hoarded. That was designed for the daily trust. The bread baked over coals by the angel's hand. The water in the jar. The prophet who had had enough being allowed to sleep, being touched and fed and allowed to sleep again. The journey is too much for you. And so, more bread, more water, more rest, and the strength for 40 days and the mountain of God at the end of them. The nets that broke, the boats that nearly sank. The night of nothing becoming the morning of more than the vessels could hold. Because a fisherman said, "Because you say so," and let the nets down one more time in the deep water. In all 3. The same thing. The provision came to the ones who went out, who looked down, who let down the nets one more time after the night of nothing. The provision required a response, a going out, a letting down, an obedience before the result was visible. And in all 3, the provision was more than adequate. 40 years' worth, 40 days' worth, more than the nets could hold. He does not provide barely, he provides sufficiently. He provides with a generosity that exceeds the minimum and sometimes breaks the nets. Go out tomorrow morning. Look down. Let down the nets. The provision is there. There is a phrase that runs through all 3 of these stories. Get up and eat. The angel said it to Elijah twice. Get up and eat. The journey is too much for you. and the implied version of it is in the manna, get up and go out. The provision is on the ground. And in the catch, put out into the deep water. The provision is there when you go, get up. There is always a getting up in the provision. Not the provision coming to the person in their place of rest and staying there. The provision waiting for the getting up. The manna on the ground requiring the walking out into the morning. The bread in the wilderness requiring the waking and the eating. The fish in the deep water requiring the pushing back out. The provision meets the movement. But tonight the movement is the lying down, the releasing, the letting the body be still. The getting up of tonight is the getting down, the putting down of the day and the weight and the managing, the lying down being the act of obedience that tonight requires. Tonight, the getting up is the letting down. And the provision is the rest itself, the sleep, the quieting of the body and the mind, the Sabbath portion that God built into the design because He knew the workers would need the stopping. He provides the rest. He is providing it right now. The heaviness of the body, the slowness of the breath, the quieting of the thoughts that have been loud all day. These are the provision, the angel's bread baked over coals, the manna for the Sabbath, the net-breaking abundance of a night's rest given by the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. Receive it, get down, and receive. Let us pray. Father, we are grateful tonight for the provision stories, for the manna that came every morning for 40 years without once failing, for the double portion on the 6th day so the 7th could be holy, for the reminder that you built the rest into the provision, that the Sabbath was not an afterthought but the point. Thank you for the angel by the juniper tree, for the bread baked over coals, for the water in the jar, for the touch that said get up and eat, for the second touch that said the journey is too much for you and then gave more bread and more water and more sleep. You tend the physical, you know what the body requires. You do not only meet the spiritual need while the body collapses from the neglect. You send angels with food. You rain bread from heaven. You fill nets that have been empty all night. Thank you for the boats that nearly sank. For the because you say so of Simon Peter. For the demonstration that the night of nothing is not the final word. That the morning has a catch in it that the night could not produce, that obedience to the word from the shore fills the nets beyond what the nets were made to hold. Give us this day our daily bread. Tonight, for each one who is here, provide what they actually need, not what the fear says they need, not what the comparison mind says they should have, what they genuinely require for the journey ahead, the bread for the day, the water for the 40 days, the catch for the nets that have been empty too long. You know what each one needs. And you provide. Give us this day our daily bread. Watch over the ones who are in the wilderness tonight, who are in the place between where they were and where they are going, who cannot go back to Egypt and cannot yet see the promised land, who are in the daily provision season, who have to go out every morning and trust that the manna will be there because there is no other option and no other source. Let them find it. Every morning, enough for the day. And let the going out and the finding become the rhythm that builds the trust. Let 40 years of daily faithfulness on the ground become the story they tell about who you are. Watch over the ones under their juniper tree, who have had enough, who are done in a way that goes deeper than tired, who have given everything they had to the thing they were called to and found that the giving left nothing for themselves, who are lying down in the wilderness not sure they can get up. Let the angel come, let the bread be warm, and the water be cold, and the sleep be deep. Touch them gently, say get up and eat. And when they have eaten and slept, touch them again. The journey is too much, here is more. And watch over the ones with empty nets, who have been out all night and caught nothing, who are washing their nets and putting them away, who have the expertise and the experience and the knowledge of these waters, and none of it produced anything last night, who are done and ready to go home. Let them hear the word from the shore, put out into the deep water, let down the nets one more time. Give them the because you say so, the trust that goes back out after the night of nothing. And fill the nets. You are the God who fills the nets. You have always been the God who fills the nets. Fill them tonight. The night is providing. Right now, in this moment. While the words slow and the breath slows and the body gets heavier, and the distance between the thoughts gets wider. The provision is happening, not the provision of more information or more answers or more clarity about the things that are still unclear. The provision of the thing the body most needs at the end of the day, the thing the soul requires after the long hours of the gathering and the working and the trying. Rest. He is giving it. The way he gave it to Israel every seventh day, the way he gave it to Elijah under the juniper tree, the way he gives it to every tired body that finally lies down and receives what the night was designed to hold. The manna for the Sabbath is on the ground. The angel has baked the bread, the nets are full, and you can stop now. The gathering is done for today, the working is finished, the trying has come to the end of its shift, and what has been given for today is enough, and what tomorrow requires will be on the ground when tomorrow comes. Receive tonight's provision, the heavy body, the slow breath, the quiet room, the darkness that is not empty but full of the presence that provides. This is the daily bread for tonight. Receive it, without guilt about what did not get done, without anxiety about what tomorrow will require, without the hoarding that tried to take tomorrow's security into today and found that it's spoiled. Just tonight, just this, just the receiving of what is given for exactly this moment. It is enough. He made it enough, and it is yours. The three stories of provision all end the same way. The Israelites were fed for 40 years, until the day they crossed into the promised land and the manna stopped because the land itself began to provide. Elijah got up, he ate and drank, and on the strength of that food he traveled to the mountain of God. He did not stay under the juniper tree. He got up and went and got there. Simon Peter left everything and followed Jesus. Left everything. The man who had just hauled in the biggest catch of his professional life, who had just watched the nets break and the boats nearly sink, left the boats and the nets and the fish and followed the one who had told him to try again. The provision was not the destination. It was the turning point. It was the moment that made the following possible. The faith that was built by the manna, the strength that was given by the angel's bread, the broken nets that made the fisherman fall to his knees and hear, "Do not be afraid." The provision points somewhere. It points to the provider, to the one who rains bread from heaven and sends angels with food and fills the nets of the ones who try again because he says so. It points to him, and the response to the provision, in all three stories, was to follow, to go, to leave everything and walk in the direction of the one who had been faithful. Tonight the provision is rest, and the response to the rest is the following: the trusting, the tomorrow morning going out and looking down, the because you say so of a new day. Rest now, so that the following can continue in the morning. He is faithful, and he will be faithful then too. The provision is not finished. The manna will be on the ground tomorrow. The angel will make bread for whoever needs it in whatever wilderness they are in. The word will come from the shore, and the nets will fill for whoever pushes back out after their night of nothing. The provision has not changed. The provider has not changed. He is the same God who rained bread from heaven for 40 years in the desert, the same one who let the great prophet sleep under a tree and made him hot bread over coals, the same one who stood on the shore after the night of nothing and said, "Try the other side," and watch the nets break with the abundance. That God is here tonight, in this room, in this dark, in the provision of a night that was designed for rest and is doing what it was designed to do, holding the body, slowing the mind, tending the soul that has been out gathering all day and now needs the Sabbath portion. Let the provision land, not the provision you ask for necessarily, the provision he knows you need, the daily bread, the angel's bread for the too much of the journey, the full nets for the morning that is coming. All of it is his to give, and he gives it faithfully to the ones who go out, to the ones who get up and eat, to the ones who push back out after the night of nothing because he said so. You are one of those. You went out, you got up, you pushed back out, and the provision is here. Rest now in the fullness of it. The manna is on the ground, the bread is warm, the nets are full, and you are held by the one who made it all so. We have come to the last part of the night, the last part of this series, the final stories, the ones we have been traveling toward through all the quiet encounters and the hidden faithfulness and the tender moments and the provision in the wilderness. And we end where perhaps we should always end, with the small things, the things that looked like they were not enough, the lunch a boy brought that fed thousands, the coins a widow dropped into a box that Jesus said were worth more than everything else given that day, the one leper out of 10 who turned around and came back. These are the smallest stories in the series, the ones with the fewest words in the Gospels, the ones that could be read past quickly and filed under minor illustrations of larger points. But we are not going to read past them. We are going to get very close enough to see what is inside them. Because what is inside them is not small at all. What is inside them is the whole of what God thinks about the things the world calls insufficient. He does not call them insufficient. He takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and feeds 5,000 and has 12 baskets left over. He points to the 2 coins and says she gave more than all of them. He notices the one who came back when 9 did not and receives the gratitude as if it were the most significant thing that happened that day. He sees the small things, he honors the small things, he does impossible things with the small things when they are offered honestly and held out with open hands. Tonight, whatever the small thing is that you are holding, he sees it, and he knows what to do with it. John chapter 6. A large crowd following Jesus to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, thousands of people, and evening coming. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" he asked Philip. Not because he did not know the answer. John tells us Jesus asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. He already knew. He was asking Philip to see what Philip would say, to surface what the disciples believed about what was possible in a situation like this. Philip answered, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." The calculation. The practical mind doing the math and arriving at the conclusion that the math always arrives at when the need is too large and the resources are too small. It would cost too much. We do not have what this requires. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many? Here is a boy, in the middle of a problem that required half a year's wages to solve." Andrew found a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, and he brought the boy to Jesus. That is remarkable. Not the finding of the boy, the bringing of him. Andrew did not dismiss the boy's lunch as irrelevant to the scale of the problem. He brought it. He said, "Here is what is available. It is not enough, but here it is." He brought the small thing to Jesus, and that made all the difference. Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 of them were there. He sat them down before he multiplied anything. He organized the crowd into the posture of people who are about to receive a meal, not people who are about to be disappointed, people who are about to eat. There is faith in the sitting down. Before the multiplication, before there was any visible evidence that the 5 loaves and 2 fish were going to be anything other than a very small meal for a very small number of people, he told them to sit down. And they did. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish, as much as they wanted. Not a careful rationing of the scarce resource, not a measured portion designed to stretch the supply as far as possible, as much as they wanted. The distribution of abundance from what had arrived in the hands of Jesus as a boy's lunch. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. 12 baskets, more left over than the original lunch contained, more after the feeding of 5,000 than before the first piece was broken. The boy's insufficient lunch not just stretched to adequacy but multiplied into abundance. Left over. There is always something left over when the small thing is offered to Jesus. I want to think about the boy for a moment. The Gospels do not tell us his name. They do not tell us how old he was exactly. They do not tell us whether he understood what was happening when Andrew brought him to Jesus, or whether he was simply a child who had his lunch taken and then watched something impossible happen with it. They only tell us he had the lunch, and that Andrew found him, and that he was brought to Jesus. That is the whole of his part in the story. And yet, Without him, there is no miracle. Without the 5 loaves and the 2 fish offered honestly and brought forward, Jesus does not have the material he used to feed 5,000 people. The boy did not know what his lunch was going to become. He could not have known. From where he stood, it was a small lunch, enough for one person, a child-sized provision for a child-sized need. And Jesus took it and did something with it that the boy will probably never fully understand on this side of eternity. That is the nature of what happens when the small thing is offered. You do not know what it will become. You cannot see from where you stand what the thing you are bringing is going to be in the hands of the one you are bringing it to. You only know it is small, and you only know he is asking, and you bring it anyway. The lunch that looks like it cannot possibly matter, the prayer that feels too thin to carry weight, the service that seems too quiet to make a difference, the faithfulness that is too hidden to affect anything, bring it. Like the boy brought his lunch, not knowing what it would become, and watch what he does with it. The boy brought what he had. And that is the whole requirement. Not that he had enough. Not that his offering was adequate to the need. Not that he understood the theology of what was about to happen or had the faith to believe it before he saw it. He had a lunch, and he gave it. That is everything. And I think of all the people across all the centuries who have read this story and recognized themselves in the boy, who have brought the small thing to Jesus and watched it become something they could not have produced themselves, who have offered the insufficient resource and found that in his hands insufficiency becomes abundance. The prayer that felt too small, that became the turning point in someone's life. The word spoken without knowing it was needed, that arrived at exactly the moment of the deepest need. The money given when there was not really enough to give, that somehow covered more than the calculations said it should. The time offered when the schedule said there was none, that became the hour someone needed most. The 5 loaves and 2 fish, over and over, in ordinary lives, in ordinary hands, brought to the one who does the impossible with the ordinary. Whatever you are bringing tonight, however small it feels, however insufficient the offering seems relative to the size of what is needed, bring it. Sit down with the crowd and wait for the distribution. As much as they wanted, there will be 12 baskets left over. He always has more than enough when what is brought honestly and held out with open hands. Now we go to the temple treasury. Mark chapter 12. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. He watched. Many rich people threw in large amounts, and then a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a fraction of a penny. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others, more than all the others." The calculation the disciples could see said the opposite. The rich people had put in large amounts. The widow had put in 2 coins worth a fraction of a penny. By any visible measure, she had contributed the least, the smallest amount, the most negligible offering. But Jesus called his disciples to him specifically to tell them something, to make sure they did not miss what he had seen, to redirect their attention from the large offerings that were easy to see to the small one that was easy to overlook. This poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. More, not less, not about the same, more than all of them combined. And he explained why. They all gave out of their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in everything. All she had to live on, everything, all she had to live on. The large offerings cost the givers something, but they gave from surplus, from the portion that remained after the living was provided for. The giving did not threaten the security. It was generous by the standard of the amount, but not by the standard of the cost. The widow gave from the part that was supposed to be for living. That is a different kind of giving, a different kind of trust. 2 small copper coins, the smallest unit of currency available, the thing you could not break into smaller pieces, the irreducible minimum, the last denomination before you had nothing. She had 2 of them. She could have kept one. She could have given one and held back one, and no one would have blamed her. She was a widow. She was poor. The keeping of 1 coin would have been entirely reasonable. She gave both. Not because she had calculated that it was the right financial decision, not because she had determined that the return on the investment made the risk worthwhile, not because she had a strategy for how she was going to eat after the 2 coins were gone. She gave both because that was the offering she had decided to bring. The whole thing, the all of it, the complete and total offering of what she had, and Jesus saw it. in a room full of large offerings, with the rich people throwing in amounts that made impressive sounds when they landed. In the noise of the abundant giving, he saw the widow's 2 coins, not despite their smallness, because of it. The smallness was the thing that made them extraordinary. The smallness was the evidence of the cost. The smallness was the measure of the trust. 2 coins that cost everything were worth more than a fortune that cost nothing. He sees the costly small thing. He always has. He is watching the treasury right now. Not the totals, the cost, not the amount, the trust that is in the giving. And the 2 coins that cost everything are the ones he calls his disciples to gather around and notice. Your 2 coins are seen tonight. Every costly small thing you have ever offered, he noticed. He called attention to it. He said more than all the others. There is something about the widow in the treasury that connects to everything else in this series. She was overlooked by the crowd. The crowd was watching the large offerings. The crowd was impressed by the large offerings. The crowd had a reasonable way of measuring the generosity being displayed, and by that reasonable measure the widow did not register. She was invisible to the crowd. But Jesus was not watching the crowd. He was watching the treasury, and he was watching with a different measure. Not the measure of the amount, the measure of the cost. Not what was given, what the giving required of the giver, and by that measure, she was extraordinary, the hidden faithful, like Anna in the temple, like Ruth in the field, like the boy with his lunch, the ones the crowd does not notice, the ones whose contribution does not show up in the obvious accounting. But Jesus notices. He always notices. He is watching tonight. Not the large offerings, the costly small ones, the faithfulness that no one praises, the giving that leaves the giver with less than they started with, the trust that puts in both coins instead of keeping one back. He is watching, and he is calling his disciples to gather around and notice what he notices. This, right here, this is what generosity actually is, whatever the 2 coins are in your life. The offering that cost you more than it looked like from the outside. The thing you gave when you did not really have it to give. The trust you extended when extending it left you with nothing held back. He saw it. He still sees it. And he says the same thing he said in the temple, more than all the others. And now we come to the last story of this series, Luke chapter 17. 10 men with leprosy, standing at a distance, as the law required, calling out to Jesus as he was passing, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." 10 men, 10 voices calling out together, the unified voice of 10 lives that had been disrupted by the same condition, the isolation, the distance, the calling out from the far edge of the road because the law said they could not come close. And when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests. Not I heal you, just go. Go and present yourselves to the priests who are the ones authorized to declare a leper clean." As if the declaration of healing was already in process. As if the going was the obedience that the healing was waiting for. And as they went, they were cleansed. As they went, not before they went. As in the going. The healing happened in the obedience, in the movement toward the instruction before the evidence of the healing was visible. They were cleansed, 10 men, 10 healings, all 10 of them restored to the community they had been kept from, all 10 of them able to return to their families and their lives and the ordinary world that leprosy had put behind a wall of distance and calling out from far away. 10 healed, and then one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. 1 out of 10 came back. "Where are the other 9? Jesus asked. Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? Was no one found? Not an angry question, a wondering one, a genuinely curious one. Where did the other 9 go? Not because he needed their gratitude, because he wanted to give them something more. Rise and go, your faith has made you well. He said that to the one who came back, the Samaritan, the foreigner, the double outsider, not only a leper but a member of the group that the Jewish world considered half people at best. Your faith has made you well. The other 9 were healed, but this one was told something additional. Your faith has made you well, the returning, the praising, the throwing himself at the feet. The gratitude that came back before the gratitude had anything practical to gain from coming back. The healing was already complete. He did not come back to get something more. He came back because the gratitude would not let him keep walking, because the thing that had happened was too large to receive and continue walking without turning around. He turned around, and Jesus received the turning, received the gratitude, and said something to this one that he had not said to the 9. Your faith has made you well. The gratitude was itself a kind of faith. The returning was itself an act of trust. The throwing himself at the feet was itself a recognition of who had done the healing and who deserved the response. And Jesus received it, and named it, and sent him on with something the 9 did not receive. Well, not just healed. Well, I want to stay with the image of the one who came back. He was already healed when he turned around. The healing did not depend on the returning. 9 others were healed and did not return, and the healing held for them too. But he came back anyway, not for the healing, not for anything he could gain by returning. He came back because the thing that had happened to him was too significant to receive without acknowledgement, because walking away without saying anything would have been a kind of diminishment of what had been given, because the gratitude was not a transaction. It was a response, the natural overflow of a heart that had received something extraordinary. The gratitude was for him, for his own heart, for the relationship between himself and the one who had healed him, for the recognition of what was actually true about who had done what. And it is no accident that it was the Samaritan who came back, the one who had the least reason to expect to be included, the one who would not have been the obvious recipient of a Jewish healer's attention, the one who had been doubly excluded, by disease and by heritage. He came back because the receiving of something unexpected from someone who did not have to give it produced in him the kind of gratitude that could not stay silent. That is the gratitude that Jesus noticed. That is the gratitude he received. That is the one he sent on with the additional word, well, not just healed, well. The gratitude was not the price of the healing, it was the completion of the encounter, the moment when the healing became a relationship rather than a transaction. And that is always available to the one who comes back. We have spent this series in the quiet corners of Scripture. The boy in the dark temple learning to say, "Speak, Lord, I am listening." The sisters and the invitation to come out of the kitchen. The woman reaching through the crowd for the edge of a cloak. Ruth in the field. The widow not running out of flour. Anna faithful for 60 years in the temple. Zacchaeus found in a tree. The woman in the dirt. The burning hearts on the road to Emmaus. Manna on the ground every morning. Angel bread for the depleted prophet. Nets breaking with the morning catch. And now, the boy with his lunch. The widow with her 2 coins. The one leper who came back. All of these stories, all of these people, all of these quiet corners of the Scripture where the dramatic was not happening and the crowds were not gathering and the headlines were not being written. And in every single one of them, he was there, speaking the name in the dark, inviting the exhausted out of the kitchen, turning toward the one who reached from behind, directing the feet to the right field, filling the jar that was almost empty, recognizing the Messiah in a baby being carried through the temple courts, stopping under the tree, getting low in the dirt, falling into step on the road going away, raining bread from heaven, making bread over coals, filling the nets, taking the insufficient lunch and feeding thousands, seeing the 2 coins that cost everything, receiving the one who came back. He was in all of these places. He is in yours, whatever the small thing is that you are bringing tonight. The prayer that feels too thin, the faith that has been imperfect and wavering, the trust that keeps coming back to the open hands after the grip returns, the gratitude for things that happened so long ago you wonder if it is still worth bringing back. Bring it. He receives it. He has always received it. He did not stop receiving it when it stopped being impressive or dramatic or sufficient by any visible measure. He receives the boy's lunch. He receives the widow's 2 coins. He receives the 1 leper out of 10 who turned around and threw himself at the feet. He receives yours, and he does something with what is received that the giver could never have done alone. He multiplies. He honors. He says your faith has made you well. Not the large faith, not the impressive faith, not the faith that had 12 baskets of leftovers before it offered the 5 loaves. The faith that brought the lunch and did not know what it would become. The faith that dropped both coins because keeping one would have been a different kind of offering. The faith that turned around after the healing because the gratitude would not let it keep walking. That faith, the small, costly, honest, imperfect faith, he receives it every time, with the same quality of attention, the same calling of the disciples to gather around and notice, the same this right here, this is what I came for tonight. You are the boy with the lunch. You are the widow with the 2 coins. You are the one who turned around. And he is receiving what you brought. Let us pray. Father, we have traveled a long way through this series, through the quiet encounters and the hidden faithfulness and the tender moments and the provision, and now here to the small and overlooked. And at every stop, in every story, you were there, not waiting for the dramatic, present in the ordinary, attending to the small, honoring the hidden, receiving the insufficient and doing with it what only you can do. Thank you for the boys' lunch, for the reminder that the small thing offered honestly is the material of miracles, that the 5 loaves and 2 fish in your hands become enough for 5,012 baskets of leftovers, that you do not need the adequate resource, you need the offered one. Thank you for the widow's 2 coins, for the way you watch the treasury with a different measure than the crowd uses, for the calling of the disciples to gather around and notice the costly small thing, for the more than all the others that you speak over the offering that cost everything. Thank you for the 1 leper who came back, for the receiving of the gratitude that had nothing to gain by returning, for that your faith has made you well that went beyond the healing to the well-being, for the reminder that the relationship is always available to the one who turns around. We are turning around tonight, bringing the small things, the insufficient lunches and the 2 coins and the gratitude that would not let us keep walking. Receive them, do with them what only you can do, and send us on with the word we most need. Well, not just healed. Well, watch over the ones who feel like what they have to offer is not enough, who look at the need around them and look at what they are holding and feel the gap between the 2 and wonder why they even brought it, who are holding 5 loaves and 2 fish in the middle of a crowd of 5,000 and feeling the inadequacy of the offering. Take what they are holding, tell the crowd to sit down, give thanks, distribute. Let them see the 12 baskets of leftovers. Let them understand that adequacy was never the requirement. Offering was. Watch over the ones who have been giving from the 2 coins for a long time, who have been faithful in the costly small giving, who have put in both coins over and over in season after season and have not seen the return that the large givers seem to receive, who are tired of giving from the place that is supposed to be for living. Sit down across from the treasury and watch what they put in. Call someone to notice. Point to the offering and say this right here. More than all the others. Honor the cost of it. See it. Name it. Let them know they were not invisible in the giving. And watch over the ones who need to turn around, who have been healed of something, who have received something real and significant and are still walking away from it without stopping to acknowledge what happened, who have the gratitude in them but have not yet let it turn them around. Turn them, gently. Let the gratitude bring them back to the feet. Let them throw themselves down. Let them say thank you in whatever voice they have right now, loud or quiet, polished or raw. Receive it and say the word. Your faith has made you well. The night is almost finished. Not in a way that ends the presence. The presence does not end with the script. The presence does not require the words to continue in order to continue. It was here before the first word was spoken, and it will be here long after the last one. But we are near the end of what the words have to offer for this night. And so let the words slow now. Let them come less frequently. Let the spaces between them be longer. Let the quiet do what the quiet does when it is given room. Let it settle, let it carry what has been spoken down into the places below the thinking. The places where the truths go when they stop being processed and start being inhabited, where the stories stop being heard and start being lived in. The boy's lunch is in there now, the widow's 2 coins, the 1 leper's return. All the stories are in there. The dark temple and the quiet field and the dirt and the road and the manna and the angel's bread and the breaking nets. They are settling into the places that needed them, doing the work that stories do in the dark when the conscious mind has finally let go enough to let them work. Let them work. You do not have to do anything with them. You do not have to understand them or apply them or derive the correct lesson and commit to implementing it tomorrow. Just let them be in you. The way the manna was in the wilderness, received, without full understanding of what it was or how it worked or why it came every morning without fail. They just received it, and it nourished them. Receive this. Let it nourish whatever needs nourishing in you tonight. We have been 5 nights in the quiet corners of Scripture. The encounters and the faithfulness and the tenderness and the provision and the small overlooked things that he notices and honors and multiplies. And the thread through all of it, the single thread that held every story together and ran through every corner we visited. He sees the boy in the dark temple who has not yet learned to hear. He sees the busy sister in the kitchen who needs an invitation to come out of it. He sees the woman reaching from behind in the crowd. He sees Ruth in the field and the widow reaching into the jar and Anna in her 60-year vigil. He sees Zacchaeus in the tree and the woman in the dirt and the 2 disciples walking away from Jerusalem with downcast faces. He sees the manna falling and the prophet sleeping and the nets coming up empty before the word from the shore. He sees the boy's lunch, the widow's 2 coins, the one who turned around. He sees all of it, every hidden thing, every small thing, everything the crowd overlooked and the world dismissed and the reasonable accounting said did not count for enough. He sees. And he does not only see, he acts. He calls the name and invites the sitting down and receives the reaching and directs the feet and fills the jar and honors the vigil. He bends down, he falls into step. He receives the one who turns around. He rains bread from heaven. He fills the nets until they break. He takes the 5 loaves and feeds 5,000 and leaves 12 baskets of abundance where a boy's lunch used to be. He sees, and he acts. Tonight, he sees you, and he is already acting. And now the final blessing of this series. The blessing that has been spoken over the people of God since Moses gave it to Aaron for the people of Israel. The blessing that has closed 10,000 nights before this one. The blessing that belongs to every person in every quiet corner where these stories have traveled. The Lord bless you and keep you. Bless you with everything that comes from his hand, the daily bread and the angel's food and the nets that break with abundance, the blessing that is calibrated to your specific need and your specific life and the specific tomorrow that only he can see. And keep you through this night, through every night, not letting go, not looking away, not failing in the watching even for a moment. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. His face, lit with the warmth of the one who stops under a specific tree and looks up, who bends down into the dirt, who falls into step beside the ones walking away. The face that notices the 2 coins and points and says, look at this right here. This is the one, that face, on you, shining. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. He is already turned. He has always been turned toward the one who reached, toward the one who climbed the tree, toward the one in the temple learning to say, speak, for I am listening, toward you. And peace, his peace, the peace that settled tonight in the stories, in the quiet corners, in the slowing of the breath and the heaviness of the body and the mind that finally let the words do their work. That peace, yours, tonight, and every night that follows. Good night, sleep well. You are loved, you are seen, you are held. The boy's lunch is in his hands, the 2 coins are received, and the one who turned around has been told, your faith has made you well. Amen.